Okay. Tough lamed base. Kaidem sheyas live dark. Yavarach asher kirishon with his voice of Tzivanu al bir Chametz. Is this a mitzvah deraisa or mitzvah derabbanan? Everybody who has their microphones off, I'm willing to hear what you have to say.
Deraisa.
Should be mitzvah deraisa.
Machlokas.
Machlekes. Okay. Nothing like a bunch of Jews out there. Okay.
Too easy of an answer.
Okay, we'll see what we got to do about this. Why is it called Bir Chametz? What bracha are we making? What am I going to do when I find my chametz? I'm going to eat it. Why should I put it in a bag? Why should you burn it? Eat it. Balkashkes. You hear this? He says it's a mitzvah to burn chametz. Garbage cans. What kind of mitzvah is that burn chametz? When is there a Raisa Tashbisu? When? When on the Dalit? This is the cross-examining. Tashbisu is at what time? At 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah. Tashbisu. Yeah, it's in the morning.
It's in the morning. At Vasikin?
Make sure by the time that time.
Not really.
I don't know. You started off like, rigid Israelis were getting to be soft Americans over here.
So the time that the man would melt, which is the 10th hour.
Okay, that's a Deraisa, that's a Rabbanan.
That's a Rabbanan.
Okay. What is it Deraisa? This guy's on the money over here, yeah? Anybody have any month to burn?
Machloket, whether it's the 10th hour or whether it's the end of the day.
All right, but anyway, if a person has chametz left, then he has a mitzvah to burn it. There's no mitzvah to have chametz left. Guess what? You agree or disagree?
I agree.
So I asked you, what is a mitzvah being chametz? There's a mitzvah to burn chametz. There's a mitzvah to bury the dead. There's no mitzvah to kill somebody in order to bury him. I think that's a fair statement. Okay, I'll try to be Makaya mitzvahs taryag. Okay, this is wonderful. And only because Koach Nefesh is Deicha, right? That's the only reason. Okay. Anyways, let's leave that for a minute. We'll get back to it. So the bracha that you make is al bir chametz because the Bedika is part of the beer. I just want to make this clear. There is nothing wrong with when you found a gluskus yofa, when you made the Bedika to eat it.
This year, Rav, there should be no mitzvah on Friday to do to destroy chametz. Since you can also eat it on Shabbos, theoretically.
Not only theoretically, if you come to my house, you could observe me eating it. Okay? I will just mention, I must mention this now. I was discussing with another Rav, actually in Ramat Shlomo, a problem that there's going to be this year. And I couldn't remember what we did the last time we did this until such a long time ago. Being that there's no Itzer to eat chametz on Shabbos, at least the beginning of Shabbos, so really the mechira of chametz doesn't have to be until later in the afternoon. So if you do it earlier, at the early time, at the standard time, so then there are people who may buy chametz afterwards and think that they sold it and they didn't. And you do it later, so then there are people the next year, this has happened in the past, that said, oh, you can do it in the afternoon. And the next year, they left the chametz over till the afternoon because the Rav said that last year, they don't sell. So this is a big problem. How do you do it? Let me just make it clear. Nobody buy any, as I said this last year, I don't remember last time, I don't remember what I said, the bottom line for this exact subject, but I said, do not buy anything that you're not planning to destroy if there's anything left over after the mechira. In other words, the pizzas that you're going to buy to eat for Shabbos, buy a minimal amount. They're not going in your freezer. Got that? Okay? They're going in your toilet. That's where they're going. Anything left over. So if you're really a frugal fellow, buy a minimal amount. Okay, anyways, but that's just, that's not what we're learning about right now. We're going to do that on Friday nights, and Mr. Shem discuss those halachas. The Hischa lived like B'lai Bracha, Yevarech Kol Zman Shaloi Siyam Bedikasai. This is a fascinating Ramah, and it deserves a little bit of iyun. You should speak in between the bracha and the beginning of the bedika. Now here, the Machaber adds in something which is a little bit confusing. V'tov, what does the tov mean? V'tov shelo yedaber, that's always good. V'tov shelo yedaber. V'tov shelo yedaber b'dvar machem ad sheyigmor kol habedika. Why, says the Machaber, why should you do that? Kedei sheyasim el liboy livdor b'chol hamakom shemachnisim b'chametz, to keep a cheshbon of what's going on. There is no isser for a person to talk while he's eating a suda. Now that we sing zmiros, we say divrei Torah. Does that interfere with our bracha when we made hamoitzi? Why isn't the talking a hefzer? So that has a bracha on it. Why? Why isn't on every bis a problem of a hefzer? You know, that's if you know the answer, so it's not a question. Why are you allowed to be? This is a circular conversation we're having. You're right. You're not wrong, but you didn't. This is a question the Rishonim deal with. When is it that you're allowed to be mafsik in the middle when you're not? And the Rishonim say, and this is, I'll just tell you where this is relevant to halacha l'maisa. Not relevant for anybody out there, halacha l'maisa, but in Hilchos Shchita, there's a very big discussion amongst the poskim that could be a shaychin is not allowed to talk from the first animal that he shechs until the last one. And the machlokes Rishonim over there is, do we say birchas hashchita is like birchas achila or like birchas hamitzvos? And I don't think, I'm not going to get involved in why that is, but I'll just tell you something which is fascinating. I'm going to ask you a question, and this question is a good question, but everybody's going to have an answer right away. So I'm just going to ask you to think for at least 3 seconds before you say your answer. If I have 2 houses, like a guy like me, I have a house in Yerushalayim and I have a house in Beit Shemesh. When I finished my house in Yerushalayim, did I finish doing Bedikas Chametz?
No.
Did I start doing Bedikas Chametz?
Yes.
On what did I start doing Bedikas Chametz?
Part of what belongs to you.
You could run for president. I have no idea what you just said.
That means you didn't complete.
In other words, let me explain my
Anything
question.
that belongs to you.
Let me explain my question. Do I have a bedika on every place that I have to check it for chametz? Or do I have an obligation to make sure I have no chametz in my possession? Now, you could say yes to both of those, right?
Right.
So obviously, I asked the question: is there a chiyuv on every square inch to check it for chametz? And when I did that square inch, I was mekayim bedikas chametz on that square inch. Or do I have a holistic obligation? I have to make sure there's no chametz in all of my areas, and until I've done all of it, I haven't been mekayim any mitzvah. It's a clear, at least the two stadim of the question. No, I did my house in Yerushalayim. Gamano, I'm finished. That chiyuv. I have another chiyuv. I have a chiyuv, one in Florida and one in Ramat Chametz, wherever it is, I have more than one chiyuv. Or do we say not like that it's all one chiyuv and these are little parts in them? This is about the Taz and others. I don't think it has to. I think we get out of that part. But this is a fascinating question, and because of that, the Taz says that you're not really supposed to speak at all the whole time, not for the reason that the Mechaber says that you may get sidetracked, but because as far as the new room is concerned, you didn't start yet. The fact that if I have two separate chiyuvim, even if I was Makayim one, it's still called a hefsek before I'm Makayim the other. Now I'm going to ask you a question that you should know the answer to. But it's a tricky question because you do this all the time and you don't even think about it. That's the problem. When do we have an example of this halacha that you make a bracha on two mitzvahs and you did one of them, one bracha on two mitzvahs, and if you did one of them and you were Makayim that one, and then you spoke before you did the other one, that you have to make a bracha again?
Tefillin.
That's it. You're a winner. You make the bracha l'haniach, and it goes on the yad and the rosh. If you spoke before you put on the rosh, you have to make a l'haniach again. Why don't you say, what do you mean? I was already Makayim the mitzvah when I put on my yad. The answer to the question is that there are two different mitzvahs. There's one, one of my bar mitzvah boys, this was their bar mitzvah pshatel. What is it? One mitzvah, one is it two mitzvah? I don't know. I don't want to get myself in too much trouble. But even though you're Makayim a mitzvah in totality by wearing the yad, and or you're also Makayim a mitzvah in totality when you wear the rosh, but there's also such a thing as wearing them together. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody wear them together, but there is such a mitzvah. So here we have a classical case that just because your bracha was chal doesn't mean that it's not chal, that it's chal lagabi the second thing, because if that second thing is a separate chiyuv, so then you'll be obligated to take care of that issue. Yeah, okay. So, anyways, let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Why do you make a bracha beforehand? Kedei she'ha bracha over l'asiyasa. Yivarech v'yesh am shetov lito yadav kaidem v'urak mishum nekis. Now, this is a fascinating Mishnah Berurah, and it needs really a little bit of iyun. There are certain places where the Chassidish poskim, sometimes the earlier poskim say before you do a mitzvah, you should wash your hands. If you look in the Chassidish poskim, they say before you light Hanukkah candles, you should wash your hands. Why is it dafka that Bedikas Chametz demands this? So there are a few answers given to that question. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Why did this one make it into the books? It bothered you a lot. Okay, fine. How do you make a bracha al bir chametz? You're not going to be mevar it until tomorrow. Anybody want to translate those words to me? Always the problem is when you know the translation, you still can't figure out what it's saying, right? Since you need to do the bedika in order to make the biur, it's like, it doesn't say harezet tchilas biur. It doesn't say that. It's not in the same gematria, right? Ari, why are you looking at me like that? I didn't look at you like that. Something like. No. Translate the word. Me'ain, it's something like biur. Bedika is something like biur. Do you see that bedika is something like biur?
Doesn't mean it's part of it.
Well, you know how I'd say harehu tchilas biur. That's what I would have said if that's what I was trying to say.
Me'ain, it's the same. Me'ain is part of.
Tell me something. Shabbos is me'ain olam haba. The Shabbos is part of olam haba?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope to let you go. You have a tav yarok? How are you getting there? Shabbos is not Elam Haba. And I'll tell you something else, that Elam Haza has a me'ain, right? Is sleeping me'ain Misa?
It doesn't say
it
that.
has an aspect. It has an aspect that is comparable, congruent, similar to.
It doesn't say sleeping is me'ain misa.
But that most definitely does.
Huh?
Yeah.
It says it's a 60th of it.
Yeah, but it says it's me'ain also. But anyways, the bottom line is that this needs a little bit of a hesber, and I think that the hesber is because it would just be that it's part of it, and you're doing it could be will make the bracha on the bedika. I think that it's part of your separation from the it's biur is how you desist it physically. You make it not around anymore. The bedika is the way that you as you all started off, but we started off over here that the mitzvah bedikas chametz is that's how you get rid of your chametz. Right? No, it's the vernacular. What do you do with bedikas chametz? That's how you get rid of it. And then after you get rid of it, you burn it. But there's a part of the bedika, this is what I understand, that it's how you separate yourself. Yeah, that's the concept. I think that this is so. Therefore, even though it's true, it's part of the mitzvah, but even this act is me'ain a biur. It's somehow that's I think that's what it means. What? Yes, I think that's what it means. All right. The aim of bedikas chametz, the aim is soif mitzvah soy. The gam aim of bittul chametz, given the ikar bittul toli balev. The aim of dvarim shebalev. V'mbirach levaya yoytz. Kozman shel osim bedikasay. Kozman shel osim mikri adayin over l'asiyasay. Could somebody explain that to me in view of that which we discussed beforehand? Again, we asked the question: is it one mitzvah bedika till the end, or is it a bunch of mini bedikas? It sounds like the first one. Wow. You know what's missing over here? That whole explanation that you said. It sounds like it's over l'asiyason. Which way does it sound to you? 1 second. I started in my living room. I went to my dining room. I'm in the middle of the kitchen. And now I remember. So the halacha is that you can make a bracha because it's over l'asiyason. So then I don't have to say that's the passion. I'd like to share with you a fascinating machlokes, the Chassam Sofer and Reb Chaim Kanevsky. It's fascinating machlokes. Somebody from the shul actually asked me this question a few weeks ago, and I chose to tell him to do like the Chassam Sofer, not like Reb Chaim Kanevsky. The person was making a maika for his gag. Okay? When do you make the bracha when you're making a maika for your gag? So first, I guess I should say, what are the options, right? What would you have thought? Lev, what would you have thought? Why don't you make a bracha?
Make a bracha before, or just immediately before
Before
starting.
what?
Right. I mean, it's a complicated issue. Right?
You could be a lawyer. That's true. Okay.
He said, "What would I have thought?" I would have
No,
thought.
I actually I went. Okay, I'm going to start doing it at 9 o'clock in the morning. It'll take me an hour. On the timeline, at what point should the bedika be the bracha be said? Beginning at 9 o'clock in the morning. All
I
right.
would have thought that.
What?
I would have thought that, but I'm not so sure.
Which is that? I said two choices.
I would have thought to make. I didn't hear the second choice. I would have thought to make it at the beginning, but I think it might be better to make it at the end.
Okay. Well, by the way, whatever you said, you're okay. You have somebody to back you up. The Chassam Sofer says you make it in the beginning because that's the beginning of the mitzvah, and you're makayim it from then onward until you finish. Chaim Kanievsky says as long as the guy could fall off, you didn't do anything, right? So when you're making the mitzvah, when you finish it, the last piece, there's a very big nafkamina because there's a question mitzvah b'yeser shluchoi. According to Chaim Kanievsky, in my opinion, you could have a guy, a worker, do the whole thing, and you just do the last thing. According to the Chassam Sofer, it's virtuous that the person do the whole thing. But nobody says that you make it in the middle. According to Lev Seltzer's, what he thought before he changed his mind, right? So if you would do the bracha in the middle of putting up the mica, is that over l'asiyasan? It's not over l'asiyasan for anybody. Because from half to a quarter, you're not doing anything. What? The mitzvah is, according to Chaim Kanievsky, doing the last one. According to the Chassam Sofer, it's the whole thing, and you start from the beginning. I said, but doing it in the middle, what? Oh, it's not. So according to, if you learn that anywhere, so each piece that you're doing along the way, but it's not going to help what you did before. Yeah. So that's just like, you know what it's like? I hate to pick on you. It's just like a guy who's eating without making a bracha. So now you remember, and you make a bracha from now on. That's not called Oivul Asiyosam. That's called you messed up on before, now you're doing something new. Ain't kesher. Oivul Asiyosam means, yeah.
Can the Rob just say what it means?
Oivul Asiyosam, if it's called a unit of one thing, so according to there's Hilchos to say that if you made a bracha any time in the middle, as long as you didn't finish it, it's like you made a bracha even in the beginning, because that's it's what all one unit.
That's what the words mean. Over l'asiyasan.
No, over l'asiyasan means before the mitzvah is done, and that's ambiguous. We automatically assume that it's a long act. But if there's a time frame that something has to be done, right? You know, I'll just use an example. I had somebody by a batimacher, and he tells me, these batim are meruba. They're off 1/1,000,000th of 1 milli. I forgot what it's called, a milli. Whatever I said, it doesn't make any difference. What? My God, it's less than the thickness of a hair, the thing that he's talking about. So I said it means to me nothing. If it was 3, as far as I'm concerned, it's the same as 1. The halacha doesn't recognize that as being more square. Just makes the batamacher more square. That's all, right? It shows it's true that his workmanship is excellent, but doesn't have any halachic value. Yes, they're 4 batim.
Are we familiar with the concept of over to over?
I don't know who we are, but I'll explain that concept if you would like. Over to over means that a person is not allowed to make a bracha on his talis when it's on his shoulder and he's making sure that all the tzitzis are there. It has to be unfolded and has to be ready to be put into place. It has to be juxtaposed to the kiyum. Your tefillin should be on your hand, and you're holding the place, ready to go, ready to do that. Anything before that?
And could you relate that now to the case of the ma'akeh?
Yeah. According to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, what the Chassam Sofer does is over the over.
And according to the Chassam Sofer, it's not. Only by talis or by tefillin?
That's right, because, no, so I'm going to answer that question. is I have an obligation to, a person has a balloon with just one small hole in it. Right? What does he have? Nothing. It's not, he doesn't almost have a balloon. He has nothing. He doesn't even have a lot of hot air. So if I have to make the purpose of the mitzvah is I have to make my roof safe. Until it's safe, it's just like putting up the posts that you're going to screw in the plates. Right? Nobody would say that when you're putting in that they should be making a bracha. I don't think. That's not nothing. That, you know what I'm talking about? You know, they have like, they put these posts in not in the ground because it's a roof, but they put the posts, they drill a hole into the ma'akeh, that's what it's called in Hebrew, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, I don't want to get too carried away over here. It's a fascinating idea, but I think that according to the Mishnah Brura and according to the Mechaber, it's all one mitzvah. So it's called Oivel Asiyosam because I have to make sure that I have it out of my rishus, and is anything that I did, as long as I have any part of it left to do, it's called Oivel Asiyosam, and that bracha is chal on everything that I did. There is no parts. Right, and as long as while I'm doing that, because it's all one thing. If it's Oivel Asiyosam on part Z, then it's enough to be called Oivel Asiyosam on the whole mitzvah. Right. Right. So as long as there's a kiyum of Oivel Asiyosam, that Oivel Asiyosam spills out onto everything. All right. Anyways, it's okay. All right. This is very important. Kozman shelo siyum bedikos. Kozman shelo siyum mikri adayin Oivel Asiyosam. V'im kvar siyum bedika lo yivorach achshav elo yivorach lemochar b'shas hasreifa. You have to make a bracha when you're doing something which relates to the mitzvah. Moshe Feinstein writes, it's a fascinating question for those who live in Chutz La'aretz. So yes, you have to pay attention because we're going to say you live in Chutz La'aretz. A person who lives in Chutz La'aretz has 30 days to put up the mezuzah. When are you mechuyev to put up a mezuzah? After 30 days. Can you put up a mezuzah when you move in to your house in Chutz La'aretz? The machlokes haposkim. The Moshe Feinstein says that you're allowed to, but you shouldn't make a bracha on it. And when it comes day 30, you should be memashmesh in the mezuzah and make a bracha then. Now, you know, that mezuzah is screwed into the wall. Well, you know, you're memashmesh in it. What are you going to do with it exactly? You can't move it around. You can't do anything. So, Moshe says the reason why you're memashmesh is because you can't be walking down the street all of a sudden and say, right? They'll lock you up, right? You have to have some kind of a connection between that which you're saying and that which is going on. So yemashmesh does not mean a special kind of a kiyum, like it Taisa seems to say in Menachos in regard to tefillin. Yemashmesh is just an indication of what the bracha is going on. And therefore he says that's what you have to do. So a person made Bedikas Chametz. He said Kriya Shema Lamita. He didn't yet say Hamapil. And now he remembers that he forgot to make Al Pir Chametz. So he gets out of bed, he washes his hands, he says Sheikh Shalom to Sivan Al Pir Chametz, and he goes back to sleep. We'll lock him up for sure. Right? And have to have, so the Mishnah Berurah says we have to have some place to stick the bracha. So if you messed up and you didn't say it by night, you wait till the morning and you say it in the morning when you're doing this reifa. Okay. The whole bracha can only be said at the time of the Bedika, because it's like a fascinating thing, right? So people like parrots will have a very difficult time over here, because we said before that the reason why you make the bracha al bir chametz because bedikas me'ein bior, So Peretz says, Me'ain beer just means it's a tchila of beer. But I was going to have a hard time explaining that if you didn't make the bracha now, you can't make it b'shas the beer because it's over. It's hard to say they're only misakin here if it's really part of the same thing. I didn't say you can't. Just it's a lot more work. All right. Veneer, that right? It's better just make the bracha right. Veneer, sharait so lismach lavarach and moichin biyada v'yeshal mi lismach. I don't know how to translate all those words into English. V'yizor shaloi ledaber b'diavad himself. Yeah, what that's what I'm saying. I don't know. What does the Mishnah Berurah say? Mishnah says not to make. What? I said not to make. Yeah, so sabal. But what the Mishnah Berurah is saying is that there's enough poskim that it's not called Tzavur B'chol. Yeah, B'diok Yeshal Milismach. All right. Yizar Shalai Nidav B'diavad V'sach with Dvarim Shein Tzachah. B'dika Yachzor B'Yivarach. You have to make a new bracha. The hefsek ben bracha lemitzvah is nothing. You know, you lost the bracha. The tov, the bazein tzarich lachzor levarach. The kivon shekor hiskul mitzvah ubedvarim shein tzarich habedika gam lechatchila yuchol davar shezeh ein chashav hefsek klal. Now there are those people that don't talk at all during the bedika, and that's for the migdar milsa, and or to be to the tazashika that is chaylik on the salah. He didn't bring the Taz down at all. I brought the Taz down. That's why you're here, not just the Mishnah. All right. Bracha achas yachol livda kama batim. Is that a chiddush? Where we are right now, is that a chiddush?
Yes.
What would it be if you weren't able to?
I would say if you're traveling from one city to another, maybe that's a hefsek of sorts.
So then the halacha would be that I should make a bracha nowhere, or I should make a bracha in each city. How come I don't hear you?
Yes.
You can be Rosh Memshala. Okay, that's it. What did you say?
One has to fix the mitzvahs in two different houses. We'll make two separate brachas.
Why is that? Because there's two separate mitzvahs. I'm being Makai mitzvah in house A, and at the same time being Mavatul mitzvah in house B. So the two separate mitzvahs. So but then you said that each room, each domain, each balata, I don't know, each what, is a separate mitzvah. What's that something right? Is that true? So then it's only one bracha. So if you can't make a bracha and include everything in it, then maybe you shouldn't make any bracha at all. When should I make a bracha? If I'm making a bracha, it has to be that with this I'm makayim my mitzvah.
Have say one bracha and have in mind for everything.
But no, the question over here is maybe in two different cities, it's too far away. Your bracha can't span that distance. Can't span that hefsek. So no. So then it's two mitzvahs. Say mitzvah twice. Fine. Well, fine. But if it's going to be one mitzvah, then you would not be able to make a bracha, or you make a bracha the second one. What do you do?
If it would be one bracha, but your bracha couldn't stand that.
Right. If it's one mitzvah, so you can't make a bracha, or maybe make a bracha maybe on a second one. Are you people over there with me?
I don't understand how the question arises. The Rav has a house in Jerusalem and a house in Beit Shemesh. If the Rav's going to be in both houses during Pesach, I would imagine the mitzvah for Bedika would fall when he leaves the house, the first house he leaves before Pesach, and he's not going to be back in that house till after Pesach.
And what will happen to the second house?
Well, first of all, do the Bedika bracha on the first house, because you can't leave that before Pesach without doing the Bedika, right? The Bedika has to be done on the first house.
Let me tell you something. I want you to know that I'm a very liked person, and I actually have friends who live in Yerushalayim, and I could ask them to do the Bedika for me in my absence. Right? I don't know if you know that I have friends, but Baruch Hashem, we have that situation. Anyways, but this is a fascinating question.
They made the bracha. They made the bracha on the Bedika they were doing.
They would make a bracha. That could be. The Chok
So you
Yaakov
can make a bracha.
there's somehow it means to say that if you have 5 people making a Bedika in one house, could be all 5 could make a bracha. But he says you can't be. There can't be. They have 5 people making a bracha on one mitzvah. Something doesn't work out. And he has a problem. The Chok Yaakov over here has a very big problem. But that's all right. Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says. I would just like to mention the bottom line in halacha before we see this, because we're running out of time. It could very well be that going on the autostrada, going on the superhighway, going from one neighborhood to another is a hefsek. But there are many questions you will say, that I say that's a hefsek is when you're going out of range of doing the mitzvah. But if the whole reason that I'm going there is to do the mitzvah, how can you say the distance is a hefsek if I have to do it? The mitzvah is machayev me to do it. You're saying that if I did it, I went out of my district? Smile, Yechiel.
At the end of the day, this man is mafsik.
It's not mafsik when you're doing something else. I'm doing, this is a hechsher mitzvah. It's not shaykh me to do mitzvah without doing this. It demands it. How could you say that I'm Masiach Das? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing.
There must be a time limit. There must be a time limit. Otherwise, if
Why does there have to be a time limit?
suppose the Rav leaves America before Pesach to spend Pesach in Israel, makes Bedikas on the Rav's house in America, and that blessing will be continued for how long ever it takes it to get to Israel.
Yes.
I'm amazed.
Okay, that's what we get you here for. Okay, I will stop over here. All right, have a good night.